K Crypto. K Crypto. Hi, and welcome back to K Crypto. I'm Monica, the co-host.
And I'm Peter Chung.
So we talked about the passage of a new law governing crypto assets and crypto business in Korea in our second episode. So I heard that the government has released some new details and more information. Is that correct?
That's right. What we discussed previously was the so-called Special Reporting Act, which is the revised legislation that the National Assembly passed back in March. But this piece of legislation is basically provides a very top-down, big-picture framework for how the crypto industry should be regulated for the purpose of preventing money laundering activities. But it lacks the specifics on how exactly the legislation will be implemented. So what happened 3 weeks ago was that some additional granularities were provided in the form of Executive Ordinance.
So you might wonder who writes the Executive Ordinance. Well, it's usually the government body that's assigned to administer the newly passed legislation. And in this case, it's the Financial Intelligence Unit under the Financial Supervisory Commission, which is the highest government body to oversee the Korean financial system. So Peter, you read the Executive Ordinance, and what are the key things to note?
Yeah, I think there are four things mainly. First, it talks about definitions of a virtual asset and a virtual asset service provider, or VASP, as some people call it. And secondly, as a VASP, what you need to do to register your business. And third, what are the requirements for the travel rule? And fourth, what measures the governments are taking to minimize the side effects of implementing the Executive Ordinance.
All right, so let's start with the first one, VASP.
The way that this ordinance defines that is basically anyone or any entity that operates the business of buying and selling or exchanging or transmitting or custodying or brokering virtual assets. So essentially, that would include exchanges, but also custody service providers that controls private keys. That's important distinction. And also wallet service providers that controls private keys.
Right. So that's actually important to talk about, because if it's a decentralized exchange, they wouldn't fall under this.
That's correct, yeah. Because the whole purpose of this is in order to control the potential money laundering activities, they require the VASP to maintain all the informations with regard to their movement in and out of the service platform. So for anyone to do that effectively, it'll have to be somebody that actually has a control over the private keys. So decentralized platforms, we wouldn't be able to do that, so it doesn't fall into the category.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so and then the other thing that they define here is the virtual asset. Basically, they define it as a transmittable digital claim on economic value, but they have a long list of exceptions.
Oh, yes. So what are some of the exceptions?
Yeah, so the exceptions are, it's rather long, but things like digital game items, but as defined by the game industry law, and also some digital claim which cannot be used as a medium of exchange or for goods or services.
So that would be kind of like flight points or credit card points, or...
That's right, yeah. Korea is full of these kind of a point system.
E-Mart points.
Yeah, E-Mart points. It's hard to keep track of sometimes, I don't know what you do with these points, but anyway, these don't count as a virtual assets. And also things like a prepaid digital payment or digitally registered stocks don't count as a virtual asset. And anything else that the Executive Ordinance decides to include as exceptions later on as they see fit can be exceptions from this list.
Right. Okay, so a little bit confusing, but is there anything that's they're very firm on?
Yeah, one thing they are very, very firm on and clear about is privacy coins. So they specifically say privacy coins are not something that the VASP is allowed to support.
Right.
Yeah, so
no Korean exchanges have privacy coins.
They used to, but many of them have delisted them over the course of the last 12 months. all the VASP has to operate using real name verification accounts provided by banks.
Right.
So that's another important thing that's stipulated in the Executive Ordinance, and it talks about who's eligible to apply for the real name verification account.
Right.
So
Hey crypto.